Hello everyone, welcome to Your Tech, Your Voice. My name is Brad Tompkins and I'm your host. Today we are in Ontario, Canada, about 3 to 4 hours south of Toronto in a town called Leamington with a population of about 30,000, and there is a lot of agriculture here. In fact, we're here with Nature Fresh Farms, and if you're thinking there's not a lot of technology in farms, well, hold on, because you are wrong. With me is my guest today, Keith. Keith, welcome to the program. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit more about Nature Fresh Farms?
So Nature Fresh Farms was founded in about 20 years ago. We are a 250-acre greenhouse growing bell peppers, tomatoes, cucumbers, and starting very soon strawberries in both Leamington, Ontario and Delta, Ohio. We also do distribution centers as far south as Laredo, Texas.
Wow, so you've got a lot of farms all over the place.
Yep, we grow almost all across North America.
Awesome. So how big is the company? How many employees do you have?
So we employ just over 1,000 employees, top to bottom, including our TFW program.
Great. And what's your role with Nature Fresh?
So I'm the VP of IT and security.
Oh wow, that's a lot there.
Yeah, it's a broad brush and it keeps me busy. I like to say I'm basically in charge of everything that connects to the internet, and that's my world. If it is a plug, it's me.
Yeah, there you go. And it's interesting that you're over IT and security. That's interesting to be in charge of both. I know some places will kind of separate those two, but that's interesting you're in charge of both.
Yeah, it's a new thing that we're really trying to get, because we really had some issues with security. We really wanted to address it, and it gave me a little more authority over that concept with people.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I can see how that would be beneficial.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about your tech stack. Let's kind of start in the data center, if you will, and talk about the technology that you have.
So everything we start off with in the data center, we have a VxRail cluster of 5 nodes in Leamington, Ontario, 3 in Delta, Ohio, and another 3 at another location within Leamington that does all of our compute, our AI, all of our workloads are ran on a VxRail cluster. Then you go to our unstructured data. We use PowerScale for that. We have a little close to a petabyte of data on our PowerScale infrastructure right now, divided between solid state down to spinning drives, which is a great ease of the PowerScale functionality.
Sure.
Then you go into our backup and recovery now, and we've expanded into the PowerProtect Data Manager to do the backup, which is a native backup utility for all of our VxRails. And it works great for us.
That's great. So now everything you have is on your own data centers?
Yep, we run our own data center top to bottom, with it being very remote and us wanting to keep everything as close as we can to the edge, which allows us to keep the compute at the edge as close as we can. We've kind of taken that approach. So we don't offshore much to the cloud at all. We kind of just say we're going to handle it. We do some workloads in the clouds, but it just works better for us to have that control.
So Keith, when we first met, I was thinking there can't be that much edge in the farm, and boy, I was wrong. Talk about what kind of edge devices you have and what kind of data you're collecting.
So we have a large selection of edge devices, everything from collecting weather to collecting ambient temperature, moisture, humidity levels, how much nutrient goes in the plant, how much goes out. We collect everything from multiple sources. Everything from a Dell Edge to a sensor that we collected from somewhere in Europe. But we collect all of that and bring it all back into our data center for computation.
And so everything that y'all grow is under a greenhouse. So it is controlled 100% by you and the technology and your teams that decide how much fertilizer, water, sun, everything that they get. Yep.
Every aspect of that plant's life we control, from the day it arrives to our facility to the day it leaves. And that is basically in about a year cycle now. So each plant lasts about 1 year. So we control how much nutrient, how much light. We try to stop the light at times in the summer when it's too bright. So we basically have a patient in our greenhouse from top to bottom, and we take care of that plant from the day it arrives to the day we take it out of here.
And the result is producing delicious strawberries, peppers, and cucumbers, right?
Yep, and that's what we strive to do better each day. Strive to do a better tomato, a better cucumber, and increase our yield per meter squared. So that way every year we produce a little bit more in the same space.
And so this is far more efficient than a traditional farm.
Yeah. Most farms, they do 1 pick, maybe 2 at the very most. We basically start growing our tomatoes in, say, January. They'll start picking them in March, and we'll continue to pick them till the end of the year.
Wow.
So that tomato vine, and anybody that's grown a tomato vine in their backyard, gets to be about 8-10 feet long by the end of the summer for you. For us, ours will get about 50 feet long in the greenhouse. And they will extend out and they will be massive. But that just tells you how much more yield we get out of that one plant.
Oh, that's very interesting. So you mentioned earlier AI. How are you using AI? And I'm assuming this is all computated on the VX rails and in your own data centers. How are y'all using that to help get more yield per square meter?
We use our AI to basically try to become more predictive of problems and predictive of what changes are going to happen. So the plant doesn't start to suffer, but the changes happen before it does it. So we try to become proactive in our changes to what the environment is. So if we know it's going to be if the AI says it's going to be a cloudy day, hey, we should slow down in the irrigation, turn on more lights, see how it reacts, and then go from there. If it's going to be a super sunny day, hey, we should start watering a little bit more earlier in the day to adjust all that. So that helps us control the plant even that much more.
I love your analogy of a patient because it's exactly that. I mean, you're doing preventative measures to help that plant be as healthy as possible.
Yeah, because the healthier plant, the more we're going to get out of it.
Wow, that's neat. All right, so we've covered kind of data center. We've talked about the edge. You know, what's in the middle there? Like, what are people using? I'm sure there's, people using computers all over the place. What's your typical device, or is there a typical device for a farm?
We try to stick to about 2 or 3 devices. It's either the Ultra 7090.
Okay.
Is our one of the ones that we like to use.
Optiplex.
Yeah, the Optiplex. And then the Latitude series, we stick in the 9,000 range, either the 14 or 15 inch lat.
Fancy ones.
Yeah. We use those. We kind of max them right out. We're right on the edge because that usually gives us the most usage out of them.
And those devices, I'm assuming they're going into greenhouses, and those aren't necessarily too harsh environments, but you're controlling the humidity and the heat.
Yeah.
How do they perform in that environment?
They really handle it well, and it's actually neat because yes, we have our greenhouses, but we also have our warehouses. So the warehouse is right next to us. That will actually be a refrigerator temperature once the crop is. So that laptop can basically go from 100 to 40 several times a day, and they handle it actually really well.
So do you have any need for rugged, or is the 9000s rugged enough?
9000s are rugged enough for what we use, and we found when we went to the rugged series, it was just too bulky, and they didn't, the end user kind of wanted something, because not only are they using it in the field, but they go back to their office and do their work. So it kind of felt too big and bulky, so that's why we stuck to the 9000 series.
Nice. So you mentioned your own VX Rail, which of course is running VMware as well. And I think you told me you're running Horizon and Workspace ONE as well?
Yep, we use both of those for remote connectivity and even just remote access to our system. Because that way our growers can be sitting at home, they can remote in, and they can see what's happening within the greenhouse, so they don't actually have to be here. Most of our growers will log in all night and control what's going on without even having to be here, and kind of fine-tune things and look at it.
Wow, I never thought about that. So because everything is controlled through the software-defined greenhouse, if you will, you're able to sit wherever you want to and add more water or add shade or whatever needs to happen.
Yep, they can fine-tune it all night. Even a lot of times too, like we'll get an alarm, like, hey, the temperature went out of this. They can just hop onto the computer, make a couple changes, and bang, it's now back to where it needs to be. The system will adjust it to where it needs to get to.
Oh, that's fantastic. So you've got Wi-Fi, I'm assuming, covering all the greenhouses and everything?
Yep, we like to say we cover everything that's in cement and a little bit extra. When you're trying to cover 250 acres, that's a lot of coverage, and it's a lot of people to use it.
Well, you not only need it for the person that's walking around the greenhouse in the laptop, but for all those IoT devices that are getting data back to the data center. I mean, you have to have connectivity 24/7, 365.
Yep. We use a lot of 5G for a lot of things like that, but before 5G came out, we were using Wi-Fi, and we truly actually try to stick as much as we can to a wired solution.
Okay.
I like wireless, it works, but because you have a range like behind us today, looking at us, it's nice and clean, Wi-Fi works great. In 3 months when the plants are here and they're filling up the space, and all of a sudden it cuts down on it. There's a lot of interference, a lot more humidity. So my preference is always to stick with wired, but the 5G has worked out pretty good.
That's nice. So tell us about the space that we're in.
Yep, so this is a 32-acre range here in Leamington, Ontario, that we have been running for about 15 years now, and we're in the process of converting it from bell peppers to growing strawberries now.
Nice.
So it's a big process, it's a lot of work, both on the IT side and on the maintenance side, to basically strip this thing out entirely and rebuild it.
Wow, there's a lot of work going on here, but it looks great. It's fascinating to sit between these two, greenhouses that will be filled up with strawberries before we know it.
Yeah, it's always, like I said, it's a beautiful feeling when it's right now, when you can look the depth of it.
Right.
It's like, wow, is it that big? Once they start to get it, you kind of lose that depth. It's kind of just neat to see and nice to walk through it.
That's neat. What a fun job. All right, so the second half of your job is security. So what are you doing to keep everything secure? And with the amount of data that you're collecting, I mean, there's a lot of IP data there that you probably don't want your competitors to know. So how are you keeping things secure?
So we keep things secure. We use Carbon Black to monitor all of our end devices, and we even use the Carbon Black workload. Carbon Black workload actually installs right on the VX rails and allows them to protect themselves a little more natively.
Fantastic. The SASE devices that you're using, can you tell me about where you're using those?
So the SASE devices we use are a way of allowing outside greenhouses or remote locations to connect back to our data center. So we use those everywhere from, say, hey, we're kind of out in the middle of nowhere, we're working on something, and we have a 5G Wi-Fi and 5G IoT device, but there's nothing close by, we'll add the SASE device directly to that, and that allows it to securely connect to our data center. And then even other greenhouses, like we have a facility in Mexico, we were able to send a SASE device down to them, and then bang, they're able to connect to our data center, we're able to get their IoT data, funnel that through that, and allow us to collect their data and refine it.
So that not only provides a secure connection, it also optimizes that connection for speed, and it kind of eliminates everything else to help it get back to you as quickly as possible.
We're even right now deploying not only a SASE device, but VMware's SASE client. So it's an SD-WAN client. It's actually a virtual client that you install on your computer that actually allows you to do the same functionality through your laptop, not through a device. So
that's nice.
It's kind of our next level now, because it's kind of neat, because we have what we call our green network. It's totally separate from our production network, and it does all our IoT data. So that's actually always been very separate, very isolated. Now with the SASE client, we're able to give the growers access to see that data in more real time, instead of just logging into the production and kind of see in the back end.
Oh, interesting. So it's probably separated by design, both for security, but also just making sure uptime and those sort of things.
Yeah, but now with the SASE client and the visibility we get into it, we've been allowed to securely find a way into there from the outside world. Right. So now they don't have to, again, adding to that work from home ability, they don't have to be here to make those changes. They can be right at home sitting there and going, I'm going to change this now.
All right, so for preventative, you got Carbon Black, you got some SASE solutions in there.
Yep.
What else are you doing from a backup and recovery perspective?
Yeah, so we use the Power Protect Data Manager, which is part of the protection suite that Dell provides. And it basically goes in and it doesn't even take a backup. It actually uses the snapshots built into the ESX hosts and copies it over. So we do multiple backups during the day, and we continue to do backups. And it was a neat thing that happened out of it. It's always funny how we install something and it'll just do backups. So one of the things that happens to us on a regular basis is an IoT sensor will go crazy and it starts recording data wrong, and just too much data comes into it. Now we can literally recover an SQL database through this backup utility, and it restores it to the hour before it went dead, and we just restore that single table. And now we don't have to go through and delete and play with what was good and what was bad. We just restore it.
So if an IoT sensor goes bad and it starts sending too much data or no data or whatever, you're able to that one table, just restore it back to an hour ago, and you've missed very little, if any, data from that sensor.
Yeah, and instead of having to go back and manually delete it and figure out what was right and wrong, we just do a quick restore. Bang, it's done. 2 minutes later, we're done.
So where do you store these backups that you have?
So there is a data store, a Power Protect data domain that we use to store them on. And we actually have 3 nodes right now. We're looking at adding a 4th, and then the Cyber Vault into it to be an air gap solution.
Okay.
So we basically replicate between facilities. We have 2 facilities in Canada, 1 in Delta, Ohio, and we replicate the data to all of them. So that way, a backup that's taken on our VX rail in Canada will get replicated to Ohio. So that's kind of our disaster recovery, because now the information is stored everywhere.
Oh, so you got that
Yeah.
geographical diverse
Yeah.
set of data. So I understand you had a security incident here recently. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and kind of what happened and what became of it?
Yep. So we actually had a ransomware attack, and
Oh, boy.
it basically took everything. They shut down every server, basically took everything we had, and didn't really take anything, but encrypted everything. And they basically destroyed every server, every laptop we had on the farm within about 6 hours.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I know it hurts to the day to think about
Not
it.
a good day. Appreciate you sharing it.
Yeah.
I know this is painful.
And it is. And I said to you, you know what? It's not that we did anything wrong.
That's right.
You know, there's a big myth that when you get hacked, you did something wrong. No, we were just young. I like to say we were young and a little naive, and we left a port open that allowed somebody to get in. They got in, they did their damage, and we learned. But it was always a funny experience now because we kind of learned how to take security a lot more seriously, how to look at how to control access and who has access to what. Because before, I'll admit, it was a lot more willy-nilly and just out there and doing whatever we wanted. And it took us about 6 hours to get back critical functions and about 48 to 72 hours to restore everything.
That's really not bad considering some of these ransomware attacks you hear out there in the news.
Yep.
And I agree with you. I mean, nowadays ransomware, especially with the threat actors out there, you know, you've got international threat actors. I mean, everybody's data is getting looked at. And
Yep.
if you think that it's not, then you're being naive and
Yep.
young, to use
Yep.
your words, right?
Yep.
And so, I mean, that's just the world that we live in. So everybody needs to be thinking about security all the time. I love the way you approach that of, you know what, we were young and we learned from it. What did you learn and what solutions did you put into place to prevent this?
So we took a two-prong attack to it. We started saying, well, more than that. It kind of started as a two-prong, but you know, it always kind of grows up being a lot more when you start doing more things. So we started off saying, we recovered in 6 to 8 hours for critical things, and 48 to 72 hours. We said that's way too long. How do we switch from the old backup solution we had to the new solution that we've now deployed to get data up and going right away? So now, instead of recovering in 8 hours, we can recover in about half hour to 45 minutes.
Wow.
And get things back going into critical functions. Then we kind of said, how do we secure it to the next level? And that's when we built the backup solution, and then we added now just a cyber vault, which is an air gap solution that maintains the data, but not just maintains the data, and it actually analyzes the data. So this actually goes in and it actually analyzes every file that's in there and says, this could be ransomware. I'm not gonna let it into the cyber vault, and I'm just gonna keep an eye on it. So that's what the Dell Cyber Vault adds. It's not only that air gap solution that they can't get to, but an analysis of what's in there to tell you, hey, a threat actor is in there. Because that's how we got lucky. The threat actor came in on a Thursday and hit us on a Saturday. Threat actors nowadays, they'll be in there for months if they really want to be before they hit you, and they get in all your backups. So that's why we started off small, and we're a small, medium business. We can't do everything at once, and then we kept expanding upon what we did.
Interesting. So the top benefits of that new solution sounds like, you were able to cut your RPO and RTO.
Yeah.
And then now you've got, Dell solutions that not only air gapping it, but it's also got AI evaluating those files to make sure bad threat actors don't get into the air gap piece.
Yep, that's the biggest thing now. And we know, and we can proactively investigate and see and work through the problem.
Wow, well that's great y'all were able to recover from that, and really the amount of time that you did it without the new solutions, and now you've even improved on that.
Yeah. And then the other thing we started to look at, like you said, what we do, we started educating our users how to do that. And then the final thing that, like I kind of hinted to before, is with our new backup solution, it's something that my entire team uses every day to help restore IoT data and do work. Where before, the old system was something that I myself always did. It wasn't something that the whole team did. So we kind of transferred that knowledge from being a me thing to being a team thing. And that way they use it all the time. So when and if it ever does happen again, the whole team is now capable of helping out and being a part of it and not having to rely on one person.
Right. And again, I love that attitude. It's really, It's not if, it's when. And that, everybody needs to have that attitude of when this happens to us, how are we going to react? Because it will happen to you. And if you think it hasn't, it probably is happening right now and you just don't know it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, it is out there. They're out there. They're always doing something, you know? And that's why at the same time, too, we talked about we expanded our carbon black. We expanded the carbon black to all the desktops to make sure everything's covered off. Where before we were kind of like, oh, this one, it's a device that we might not need it on. Nobody uses it. No, everybody gets it. Everybody gets protection. That's just the end of the story.
That's right. If it plugs up, it's going to get carbon black, right?
Yeah, that's like I said, that's why they changed my security role in that sense, because it allowed me to say, no, I'm sorry, you want to be a part of this? This is what we're going to do to make it secure. And you know what? It did create a lot of bumps. It did create a lot of bumps in our IoT devices, because seeing how they interact with systems that we never really knew. But once we kind of made that, here's that benchmark that's good. This is acceptable, this is normal. We're now comfortable now with what's happening.
All right, so many lessons learned through the incident. Now you've got your data more protected and you're continually working on that. So what kind of data are you collecting? I know we touched on the IoT devices here, but let's talk a little bit more about that data that's coming into your environment.
Yeah, so we collect data from everything. So not just even data at the edge where the plant is growing. So where the plant is growing, we'll collect everything from irrigation, whether it's just the black tubes behind us, irrigating the plants, what goes in, how much comes out, the nutrient level going out. Each plant is monitored and understood of what it's absorbing. We even monitor the weight of the vine in real time to understand how heavy the vine is to see if it's absorbing the nutrients. We look at how much sun it's getting, the humidity of the area, the solar radiation it's getting. We look at everything and we control all of that from top to bottom. And then you even go to the next step, we control the environment that it is in the packing line. We control the pictures of the tomatoes to decide what's the same color. We don't let a person decide what's red. We actually use AI to tell a person this is a red tomato. And this is the red tomatoes that should be in this box. And if that red tomato is the wrong red, take it out and put the right one in. Because we want everything absorbed into there. And all that data, from the cooler temperature to the size, to the color, to the way it looks, is at a grade 1, grade 2, grade 3 level. We record every little bit of that data.
Wow, so all over this, I mean, where are those sensors? It's multiple sensors everywhere, I'm assuming?
So multiple sensors anyway, usually stored right underneath the white tray that we call it here. There's spoons that are underneath that do the drips. There's sensors everywhere. We do a lot of what we call birdhouses, where it's a sensor in the air that basically is set up with a cable and it records 10 different things. We'll have them all over the place. Right now we're under construction, so they're not up yet, but they'll be all over to record that area's thing. But we do have a lot right on the individual plants. We even do counts every day using AI and using things like that to count how many flowers are on the plant, how many peppers are on the plant, and keep track of all that to look into how much they grow.
That's fascinating. And is most of those sensors hardwired?
Yep. We really try to hardwire everything we can. Wi-Fi is very intermittent in here. 5G has come out, it's helped us. But again, it's one of those things that I guess I'm a little old school that way, and I just like to have that hardwire. I know it's going to work. And again, this edge is a harsh edge.
Yes.
It gets hot. The sun beats on it. So I find wireless devices, they need a battery, and that just goes after time. And we want to be able to collect 24/7. We don't want it to go dead at 3 a.m. and then have to react to it. We want it to work every moment of every day.
All right, so you're collecting all that data, those packets of data is heading back to your data center. How are they getting from here to your data center, and where are they landing in your data center?
Yep, so they all travel, usually fiber optics for the large runs, but everything goes on a Dell switch, an N-series switch, S-series switch that helps us get from point A to point B, and all of that hits. If it's a picture, it hits our power scale system. If it's data, it hits our VxRail system into one of the virtual machines running on it.
So did I understand you right? You're taking a picture of every piece of fruit that goes out of here?
Yeah, so there's actually scanning on the packing line area. They will actually look at it to evaluate it to decide what color it is. Is it a grade A, grade B, grade C? Like, where is it at? Is it just garbage? Has it been broken? And it actually automatically sorts it and puts it to the right person to pack in the same box so that every pepper, tomato, cucumber is the same type within that box.
Wow, that's fascinating. So on the picking, is it humans that are picking the plants and then humans that are packing it?
Yep, so right now it's kind of a combination. We are looking into AI to actually do picking. But for the most part, yeah, it is a human being out there picking it. That's why we have a large temporary foreign worker program that gets a lot of people in here to pick. And then when it gets to the line, we try to reduce as much touching as possible. So all the grading is really done by a computer and an AI system and a packing line system to separate it. And the last person kind of just puts it into the box, make sure it's all correct.
So to minimize the human touch.
Yep.
So all this data is coming back, some's going on a VxRail, you've got pictures, so you've got structured and unstructured data sitting in your data center. How are you managing that?
It's always a toss-up, it's a teeter-totter game, but it really is a lot every day. A lot was just transactional, so it hits it, it stores it, it reacts to it, and then it goes away. Okay. But we continue to store it because we like to go back in history. We like to see what we did a year ago. We like to see what we did 5 years ago, because that helps feed the AI. 5 years ago, this storm came and it changed temperature from going from this to this. How did the plant react? So next year we can look at improving it.
So Keith, you've got a lot of structured, unstructured data heading back to the data center. How do you know when to, buy another node or buy more storage?
That's when we use our Data IQ and the Cloud IQ that Dell provides us. So it looks at what we're doing each day, measures how much is being transactional and just disappearing, at what rate, how long, and then gives us analysis. So the Data IQ actually gives us a growth chart. It actually looks at our past practices, how things have done, and gives us the growth for each different tier of data. So for solid state data, mixed, and spinning drives, and analyzes each one how much it's taking up so that we can make real-time adjustments and decisions of what to get.
That's great. So Dell knows your environment. It knows what's data that you are going to be discarding and deleting, and so it can help predict when to get more.
Yeah. So that way we have a real estimate of when we're going to need to add either PowerScale storage or VxRail storage.
Nice. All right, so let's shift gears and talk more about the accessories that you have here. And walking around, I've seen a lot of nice things here. So what kind of accessories do you give your workers to help them perform better and have some of the nicer things?
Yep. So we have the nice Dell portable 14-inch monitor. A lot of people use that.
Oh, that one is really popular.
Yeah, it was a great addition. We've tried that in a couple things. It's great for the portable user because now they can work in any spot and have two screens. We use the DA 310 and 305 for adding, we call them the hockey pucks, adding accessories to your laptop. We have this little speaker device. I can't remember the model, but the speaker, that's another USB-C that plugs into your laptop, and it's a speakerphone for meetings. We also have our large 86-inch Dell television for office space where we actually do collaborative whiteboarding on.
Oh, wow.
And that's one of my favorites because I'm a whiteboarding person. I like to draw things. And the greatest feature I ever got out of it is I can save it and bring it up later. Because my whiteboard's always disappeared on me, and I'm like, I knew I drew this years ago. Where is it?
It beats the taking the photograph of it like I do now.
Yeah, that's what I used to do, and I'd have to redraw it. Now I just open it back up, add to it, delete, change, and do whatever I need to do.
So when you're on a conference call, it doesn't matter if your team's in Mexico or Ohio or here, they can see.
Yeah, they can see it. Yep. Yeah, we can share that all together. Microsoft has a Teams conference room kit that now you can get. Dell has one that actually adds the camera and all those parts to it. Through Logitech they do that, and it's a great combination using an Optiplex 7090 as the core for it.
Well, y'all have always been remote and having remote locations with your different farms in different countries.
Yeah.
But now that's the norm.
Yeah.
Everybody's working from everywhere. So these, something simple as adding, hey, let's make this room Teams ready. It makes a big difference, so everybody feels like they're part of the meeting, whether they're remote or not.
Yep, the new ultra sharp cameras, the 2K, the 4K, all those nice new cameras that come out. We use a lot of the monitors, a lot of the curved monitors started to come with the Teams built into them.
Yes.
So we like to send those home for end users that are working from home, because now I don't have to worry about sending them a camera, sending them speakers. It's all just part of the monitor now. And because it's a USB-C hub, It makes it even nicer for us on the farm because now we just plug the network right into there and they get their network and everything all in one.
Get your hardware that I know you like.
Yep, that's what I like to see.
Those hub monitors are amazing
Yep.
because you can hardwire them, and it's one plug that connects up the monitor and powers the device and everything. So
Yep.
the end user is like, how can I get plugged into this?
It's one.
I love it, and I know you do as
Yep.
IT because it is hardwired, so it's less,
That's what-
access on the AP points. So
Yep.
it's a win-win.
It's what we look for. And then the only places that we use, we do use the Thunderbolt 18S now, I think, and TBS for the docking stations. We use those for sometimes when a person wants 3 monitors.
Okay.
Because we ran into an issue with the standard ones, the USB-C, that we couldn't display to all 3, or they had to close their laptop to make the 3 active. So it's actually neat. On the Dell website, we found a page that references the math and the formula of all the optics and says if you got 3 27 inches, you're displaying at this, you're going to need a Thunderbolt. You're going to need to go Thunderbolt to the first one, DisplayPort to the next, and HDMI to the next, and actually laid it out because we actually ran into that where we had 3 monitors, and the guy's like, well, my desk, I like to still use my 4th. And I'm like, well, I was happy when I got 2 years ago, and now you want 4?
Now times have changed.
Yeah, and I'm like, man, you just guys want it all. But that's the great thing about using the variations in that and the different ways that Dell has the peripherals, is we can do that. We can adjust on the fly.
So you tell the website, I've got this laptop, these monitors, this is a resolution, what do I need? And it says, go get the Thunderbolt.
Yeah, well, it kind of figures it out for you from there. Like, there's a little bit of, it's not quite as easy as that, but for the most part, that's how it works. And it was actually a nice thing because I actually got it through a call through Pro Support Plus. I actually went to them and said, hey, I can't get the 4th monitor working, and the tech actually took me through, okay, here's the math, here's how we redeploy things so that it all goes back into the system. And that way we know exactly how to do it.
Well, that's a great tip for the community because I'm sure somebody's been in that same situation. So.
Yep. And we rely, I'll admit to you, my first call to every of my guys on my team is, have you called Dell yet to help you out? With the Plus, you can get to talk to somebody that's knowledgeable and knows, and they usually will find the answer. If they won't, they'll get back to you quick.
Right. So you're buying your Microsoft 365 through Dell.
Yep.
And then that with the Pro Support, it's almost a combined double whammy of extra support.
Yep, it's all in one. I always say it's the easy way out now for us and the hard way for Dell. We kind of keep everything through Dell. Our products are Dell, and then
I've noticed.
But it makes it easy on the support call. When things are going bad, it's not like, okay, well, it's a Dell switch that might be causing, okay, well, let's get a Dell support engineer on the call for the switch. Oh, maybe it's the Power Protect data domain that's doing this. Let's get him on the line. It's not having to call different companies and trying to coordinate it. It's one larger group working together. And then from the Dell side, because they are compatible products, they want to make sure they work together.
Right. No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, Keith, this has been great talking with you, and it's so fascinating to be in this environment, but to just understand how technology is really getting in every industry, and even in the agriculture industry. Y'all are really cutting edge on what you do. Yeah. From the data center with the VX rails and all the Dell products, with the networking, which is Dell, with the peripherals of Dell, the IoTs Dell, like y'all are all in with Dell. So tell me a little bit about just their partnership overall.
So we've had a great Dell partnership. We've worked great together. We continue to evolve it every day, and we continue to look at how we do the edge and how we continue to revamp it. So it's something we just changes every day. It is a fun thing to change. So we are constantly looking not only at Dell, because we are a Dell shop in the way I like to say, but we also want to incorporate all the data from outside vendors, from third-party people that just make an IoT sensor. Maybe they're not an IT shop at sensor, but they're an IoT sensor company. Mm-hmm. And we want to be able to make sure that Dell is ready to collect that data for us. And that's one of the biggest changes I see coming in the next little bit for IoT and Edge.
I agree. I mean, that's a big thing, and everybody says data's a new currency. So the more currency, more data that we can get and consume, the better, especially with things like AI out there really changing all industries.
Yeah. It's changing every day, and the Edge changes all the time.
If you would like to learn more about the Dell Technologies user community, you can do that at our website at dtuc.com. That's dtuc.com. Thank you for watching.
Your tech, your voice.